right, so for our sewing, we are going to be doing mostly just a basic running stitch. And that's just where it's like an up, down, up, down, up, down kind of a pattern. You might have done this with yarn on some paper at some point in time. We do it for those kind of things in the classroom. But for this, you're gonna need your practice felt, you're gonna need your needle, and you're gonna need some thread. Now I suggest for these little loved ones, maybe just one arm span will do you. You do not need a full wingspan for this. They're not very long lines. So I've got my thread here, and I'm gonna cut it. And now I have to thread my needle. Okay. And remember, if you have a hard time threading your needle, you can get a needle threader, or you can wrap some tape around the end. Some kiddos like to lick it. But we are now going to sew here, but we don't want our thread to come all the way through, so we actually need to tie a knot here. So to tie our knot, we are going to do just your basic overhand knot, and there's actually a video specifically for that, but I'm gonna show you here too. And so you just wrap it around your finger, they cross like this, and then you go back through. All right, so I'm gonna show you again. I have to undo my knot there. Some kiddos don't like wrapping around their finger, so instead if you want to make an X like this and then come back around to go through, that's fine too. But that'll just give you a nice knot. And if your needle's too big, you might actually have to do a double knot. It depends. You don't want to pull that knot through, so don't pull too tight. But we're actually going to start on the back because we want to hide our knots. We don't want people to see those. So what you're gonna do is I like to spread it out with my fingers like this so that it's nice and tight. And you're just gonna kind of push up from the bottom, at the bottom of your line, and you're gonna pull that through. Now if I pull too tight, it might come through. It depends on what kind of felt we're using. But now I'm gonna go back down. Make sure that your finger is out of the way. Don't stab your finger there. Okay, so I'm gonna go back down, and we want our stitches to be big enough that we can see them, but we don't want them so big that it's like half of the line, okay? So I'm gonna go right about there, and I'm gonna push down, and I'm gonna pull it through. Okay, and we're just gonna keep doing this all the way up the line. And my needle is actually not very sharp, but if you have a sharper needle, it might go through the fabric a little bit easier. So your goal is to try to get it so that your stitches and the space between the stitches is sort of about the same. And now if you are doing this on something that's not a black line, you would actually be able to see yellow here, but we're seeing black, and that is just because I drew that black line for you so that you would have something to follow. And we're just gonna keep going until we get to the end, and then we are going to have to knot it at the end too, and there are a couple different ways that you can do that, and I will show you how when we get there. So some common problems that kiddos run into is while they're stitching, somehow accidentally this goes through here. So all you have to do, and that's gonna actually make it like really weird, it's gonna pull it weird and tight like that, is just stop, go back through, and then you can pull it through. Another common mistake is they pull too tight and it starts to do that. You don't wanna do that. You wanna pull just tight enough that your stitches are nice and flat against the fabric. So like you can see on this side, we can see the yellow because there's no black line on that side. And so eventually you're gonna get a feel for roughly where your needle is. Like see right there, I accidentally went up way too high, so I had to pull the needle back out and replace it to go through. And you need enough string at the end to be able to tie your knot. So I have plenty of string here, but if you're starting to run out of string early on, you might have to stop early on. You don't wanna get to the end and then not be able to tie a knot. Now you'll notice here as well, I probably won't be able to fit another stitch in there nicely. All right, so I think I'm gonna call it good, and I'm gonna flip it over and I'm going to tie my knot. Uh-oh, looks like I accidentally pulled my other knot through. So when I was showing you guys how to pull it tight, so I'm just gonna pull that back through real quick. Nope, I made the hole too big. Okay, well I'm gonna show you how to fix that after I show you how to do this. All right, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is, because I know I have to go back and fix this, I'm gonna pull this so that I have more there since I have plenty of string here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my needle and go underneath that last stitch. Okay, then I'm going to go back through that hole and pull it nice and tight, but not so tight that, you know, I'm making it all lumpy again. Then I'm going to do that one more time. Go through, go back through the hole that I made and pull it tight. And there we go. I have a nice knot. All right, so I can cut that off. And then for this one, I can actually just do the same thing again. Okay, I can go through and back through and pull it tight. And this is where it gets tricky because I don't have a needle to help push it through. I could actually probably pick up my needle to push it through. And go back through. And then one more. Here we go. There we go. So I fixed my knot that I accidentally pulled through when I was showing you guys that it was too tight. So there we go. My first line is done. And so now I have to do my second line. All right, so for this next one, we want our strings to show up a little bit better. So I'm going to show you how you can do it with a doubled up string. So we have to thread our needle again. And I'm just using my leftover from the last one because I had plenty. Okay, and so to double it up, you would just have the two ends meet like this. All right, and then you wrap it around just like before for our knot and you go through. You can't tie it like you would a pair of shoes because on a pair of shoes, your foot stops the knot from going any farther. We don't have that. We don't want the knot way up here. We want the knot way back here at the end, otherwise that's a waste of string. So just like before, this is another straight line. So we're going to start at the bottom. And we're going to work our way up. Now, most of you guys are probably going to end up doing a double string like this just because it shows up better. But if you're one of my friends that wants to do a single stitch, that's just fine too. And so remember, we're doing the running stitch all the way up, and I'm actually probably putting a little bit too much space in between here. So I'm gonna kind of start making them a little bit smaller there. Because if you can only fit like 4 stitches on the line, I might need to switch needles. If you can only fit 4 stitches on the line, then your stitches are way too big, okay? This line needs way more than 4 stitches. Plus, when you're doing that for things like your initials or you're trying to draw something, the fewer stitches you have, the harder it's going to be for people to understand what's going on. All right, so almost there. Goodness gracious. When you have the double string, you're going to want to make sure that you're pulling it so that they're even as you go, just because sometimes they tend to like pool up with just one of the strings. Oh, I'm getting a little off kilter here, so I gotta make sure I'm back on that line. It looks like I might be able to fit one more in if I make it a little one. So I'm just gonna do like a little guy right here. Now with this one, there's actually another way that you can do the knot, okay? So you could tie your knot this way, just like we did before by going under. So I'll show you that one again. So you go under and through, under and through. Or because there's 2 strings here, you can actually cut and you can double knot like you're double knotting your shoes but without a bow. However, I will say that the other way that I showed you is a little bit more secure. But so you can just double knot it like that and you're good to go. So now I've got a quadruple knot there because I tied it 4 times. All right, so you can see though that this line is showing up a little bit better than that line. So if you want to just keep working in double strings, and I think that's what I'm gonna do because I like that one shows up a little bit better, you can. Now when we clip this short, we don't want to go right next to the knot because we don't want it to come undone. So we're just gonna clip and clip. And so my extras can get thrown away. And I am all out of string, so I actually need to get some more string because now we're going to do zigzag practice and wavy practice. All right, so I got my new string and I have to rethread it, and I'm actually going to show you guys another way to thread it. Is if you cut a piece of paper about the size of this, about the size of your hole, and you fold it in half, So this is if you don't have a needle threader at home. Some of you might have one at home, some of you might not. And I actually cut a pretty skinny one here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this part first. You put your string in that folded part, like that. Ooh. And then you just push the string through the hole, and then that makes the string go through the hole a lot quicker, okay? You don't have to do that. That's not something that I'm requiring you to do. But if you are having a really hard time getting that needle threaded, that's the way to do it, okay? So then once again, we need to tie our knot. So we go around our finger, make sure that they cross, and we go back through the hole. And remember, we want the knot at the end, not way down here. So try to direct that knot kind of towards the end of your string. Okay, so now we're gonna do zigzag. And this one is very similar to the straight line, except that we're going to be changing directions as we go, okay? So for some of you, you're probably thinking like, Miss Colbert, I got this. Good for you. Practice always makes progress. So we're gonna keep practicing. So once again, our knot is hidden on the back. And then we're gonna go up and down with our running stitch up until we get to that corner. And we're gonna try to make it so either we're coming up from our stitch in that corner or we're going down from our stitch. We don't want it to be like right in the middle of a stitch or an empty spot because we really want to accent that corner, okay? So I forgot to change out my needle, that's okay. All right, so I'm going, so see right here, I might have to just kind of force my stitch to go to that corner. It's a little bit more space than I would like between my stitches. But this way, it's a very direct, like, yes, I am changing directions. If you try to do it in the middle of a stitch, it's gonna be kind of difficult. So you can see I'm changing directions down here, and it looks like I pulled my knot through again. I really need to stop doing that. Our practice felt is a little bit older than our stuff for our bags, so it might be a little bit looser. So like I said, don't pull too hard. Just pull hard enough that it's flat against the fabric. All right, so I'm just gonna keep going until I get to my next corner. So you can see right here, I've got it kind of, it doubled up on itself, so I need to kind of go in and looks like it even knotted up on itself and just kind of fix that. Your needle is your friend for those small little things. It can get places that it's kind of hard for your fingernails to get to. And if you're sewing along and you're like, Miss Colbert, all of a sudden I just ran out, I had so much string and now I have none. It could be that your string knotted up on the back. So every so often make sure you're checking that out, okay? So we're just gonna keep going. And so I'm gonna hit my corner. And I'm turning, and you'll notice that I straight up just turn the actual piece of fabric. Your fabric does not have to stay perfectly straight like this the whole time, okay? Your fabric can move so that it's easier for you to sew. And like I said, everybody's gonna find their own way to do this. So you might not stretch yours out the way that I do. Maybe you do yours a different way. I don't know, everybody does it a different way. So it's all good. I think I can get one more stitch in here. And then I go down. All right, so I'm on the back again, and you can see I've got that nice zigzag going on. So now I have to tie my knot, and I think I'm gonna do it this way again. So remember, we go through underneath and back through, underneath, and then back through. I'm not gonna make a quadruple knot again. I don't need to do that. There's no need for a quadruple knot. Double knot is good enough. All right, and then I trim it, not right next to the knot, but close. All right, and this might be enough to get through, but I'm gonna do a new string just because I have it here and I wanna make sure that I get enough to get all the way through for you guys. So if you're working on your project, and let's say you're wrapping around one of your patches, you can always get more string after, but for this, we just kind of want to do one continuous string, okay? So I'm gonna get some more string and then we're gonna do our wavy line. All right, I've got my string, I need to thread my needle. So once again, it just goes through, like that. Remember, you can put it in between a piece of paper and kind of push it through like that. Both work just fine. Doubling up. I'm gonna put the two ends together, wrap it around. So make sure that they crisscross and then go back through. So it's like it's wrapping around the other side of the string, and then pull it nice and tight. Okay, so with our wavy line, you have to be a little bit more conscious of, oh goodness, that's a very loose spot. I'll have to make it another knot. So if I have to make it another knot, I have to do the same thing, but this time I really have to guide where that knot falls, because I want it to fall in the exact same spot. So if you need to make a double knot like I just did, you've really got to pay attention to where you pull that tight. You can't just pull it tight all willy-nilly, because then you'll have two knots on the same line, but not in the same spot. So I'm gonna go up and in. All right, looks like I might have just hit a loose spot in my felt for that one. So now, because we're not actually turning a corner, we are just straight up curving as we go, and this is kind of hard because it's the teeny tiny little corner here on my fabric, and I once again didn't change my needle. But yeah, so since we're not having a corner, we have to make sure that when we're doing our up and down, we are curving as we go. We can't just all of a sudden get here and be like, whoop, we're gonna go this way. Oh, so right there I kind of went willy-nilly. That's not great. All right, but that's okay. Practice makes progress. I'm sure you guys have gone willy-nilly a little bit here and there as well. That happens. As long as like you're close to the line, we're good. But if all of a sudden you're like way over here, that's not great. You might have to undo that then. So if you have to undo a stitch, all you have to do is flip it over. You might have to take your needle off, but you would just pull it back through like that, and then you would pull it back through all the way. I'm not gonna, actually I will, because it went back through. So that's all you would have to do. So then I can just go back through that hole that I made. Right, so I'm getting close to the end here. Okay, and we want to just be careful. Please make sure you're watching those fingers. Do not stab yourself. It's easier to watch when you're pushing up. It's kind of harder to watch when you're going back down and in. So like what I tend to do is I put my finger there just to like, oh, I know where my finger is, and then I move the finger out of the way. You can do it different ways. That's up to you. But now you can see I've got my wavy and I've got my zigzag. So if I had had like some smaller and more stitches in my zigzag, it might be a little bit more pronounced. But I've got a zigzag and I've got my wavy, and they're quite obviously different than my straight. And actually you can see the difference in terms of the thickness of the line too. That doubled up string shows up a lot better than the single string. But maybe you don't have a lot of thread, maybe you want something skinny like that, that's fine too. So once again, I'm gonna knot this up. I'm gonna go under, gonna go back through, pull it tight, under, back through, pull it tight, cut it close to the knot, but not on the knot, close to the knot, but not on the knot. All right, and there we go. We've practiced our two straight lines, our zigzag line, and our wavy line.